like Europe, they prefer a more slender figure, whereas countries like Mauritania, they prefer a more rounded silhouette. It comes down to no matter where you are in the world, women will go to crazy lengths to get to the beauty ideal that they want. I notice a lot of these women like to fashion themselves over their favourite idols. The mad thing is, some of these so-called idols are not what they're presenting themselves to be. I'll leave that part to your imagination. You know what? When I was at school, I used to get teased for having a bigger derriere. Bang, bang, here comes a giant peach, they would say. At the time, I couldn't imagine that people would go to lengths of actually trying to extend their bottom. Ouch! Let me tell you the story of the BBL. Becky adjusted the compact mirror for the 100th time that morning, tilting it back and forth in search of wrinkles she was certain weren't there yesterday. 39 and fabulous, well, almost fabulous. Living in the heart of the West Midlands, she had spent years creating her image to perfection. Her skin smooth and polished, her hair golden highlights that shimmered in the right lighting, and her figure, well, that was a work in progress. She'd never set foot in the gym. Too sweaty, too public, and honestly, why would anyone have to witness her struggling with the treadmill? Becky was convinced she could cheat biology with a little self-discipline and a whole lot of concealer. Sweat, she often proclaimed to her few remaining friends, is just an unattractive desperation dripping out of you. Of course, Becky's vanity had cost her a few things over the years. Friends, family, and most recently her husband. He walked out 6 months ago, his parting words a stinging echo in her mind. "You don't love me? You don't love anyone? Becky, not even yourself?" She told herself it wasn't true. He was the problem. He didn't appreciate her efforts to stay youthful and beautiful, even if that meant skipping family dinners to avoid bloated face or discouraging their friends from visiting, because really, who needed all those prying eyes in her perfect home? And kids? Oh gosh, absolutely not. She wasn't about to ruin her figure for something as messy and permanent as a child. Now left with only her curated reflections and an increasingly critical Instagram feed, Becky was beginning to spiral. Every scroll revealed impossible sculpted bodies, flawless skin and curves she couldn't hope to match. There was one solution, an idea so bold, so transformative, it couldn't possibly fail. The Brazilian butt lift. It wasn't just vanity, it was redemption, the ultimate comeback for Becky. Her friends and family tried to talk her out of it, warned her about the risks, the expense, the absurdity of it all. Becky had made up her mind. This wasn't just a procedure, it was her ticket to becoming the woman she was always meant to be. So she thought. Becky stood in front of the mirror, twisting her body to examine her backside from every possible angle. It wasn't fair. Once upon a time, her slim, flat figure was the pinnacle of fashion. But now it seemed the world had decided bigger was better, leaving Becky behind. Her Instagram feed was filled with influencers posing poolside with gravity-defying curves, flaunting their so-called natural beauty. Becky had spent hours analysing those photos, zooming in until the pixels blurred. "Natural, my foot," she muttered, scoffing at the blatant lies. But still, she envied them. Envy soon turned into obsession, and obsession led her straight to the glossy advertisements for the Brazilian butt lift. "You deserve this," Becky whispered, staring at the before and after photos of the clinic website. It wasn't just a cosmetic procedure, it was an investment in her future. Forget Pilates or endless squats. This was faster, better, and the most importantly, guaranteed. A week later, Becky found herself in a bright, sterile clinic. The consultant, a petite woman with impossibly smooth skin, gestured to a chart showing various posterior shapes. "So, Becky," she began with a practiced smile, "we can enhance your natural shape, ensuring everything remains in proportion to your body." Proportional, Becky nearly laughed. What was the point of subtlety? She pointed out to the largest, roundest backside on the chart. "That one," she said with conviction. The consultant hesitated. Her smile faltered. "That That's quite dramatic. We typically recommend something more balanced. I know what I want, Becky interrupted, crossing her arms. She wasn't about to let anyone talk her out of it. I'll pay extra if I have to. Well, the consultant said carefully, there are risks involved, especially with larger enhancements. Infection, rejection, discomfort. I'm not afraid of a little discomfort, Becky said confidently, even though the idea of discomfort made her palms sweat. Book me in. On the morning of the surgery, Becky posted a carefully filtered selfie with the caption, "Glow uploading, stay tuned." She ignored the flurry of concerned comments from her friends and family. Her best friend from childhood, Amanda. Yes, the same Amanda she once teased mercilessly. For her fuller figure called her moments before she left for the clinic. "Becky, are you sure about this?" Amanda said. "There are healthier ways to..." Before Amanda could finish, "I don't need a lecture. You wouldn't understand. This is about feeling confident." Amanda sighed, her voice softening. I just don't want you to regret it." But Becky had already tuned out. Regret? The only thing Becky regretted was not doing this sooner. The operating room was colder than Becky expected, the bright lights making her squint. As the anaesthetist counted down, Becky let her mind wander. She imagined herself strolling down the streets, heads turning, whispers trailing in her wake. "Is that Becky? Oh, she looks incredible." When she woke up, groggy and disorientated, the nurse greeted her with a strained smile. "The procedure went as planned," she said, though Becky thought she detected a note of hesitation. "Can I see it?" Becky mumbled, still half asleep. "In due time," the nurse replied. "For now you need to rest and remember, no sitting." Becky didn't care. She was already picturing a triumphant return to Instagram. What she didn't know was that her transformation was about to become more dramatic and far more complicated than she ever imagined. For the first 3 days, Becky felt victorious. Sure, she couldn't sit down or lie on her back, but she told herself it was a small price to pay for beauty. She shuffled around her flat on tiptoes, carefully avoiding mirrors. She wanted her first real look to be a moment of pure triumph. But by day 4, the novelty began to wear off. Dressing became an Olympic event. None of her old jeans fit, so she resorted in oversized leggings and baggy tops that hung awkwardly over her new proportions. Walking was a wobbly ordeal, and any attempt at sitting resulted in a sharp pain that made her yelp loud enough to startle the neighbours. On day 6, Becky finally worked up the courage to look in the mirror. She turned slowly, eyes squeezed shut, then peeked over her shoulder. Her breath hit. The backside staring back at her was enormous, far bigger than the sleek, sculpted vision she'd imagined. Worse, it wasn't symmetrical. One side jutted out at the higher angle, giving her the distinct appearance of a lopsided sofa cushion. "This can't be right," she whispered, twisting awkwardly to get a better look. Her reflection mocked her, the harsh bathroom light amplifying every flaw. And was that a smell? She sniffed the air, then gagged. Becky dialed the clinic immediately. "Oh, this is normal," the reception said in a chirpy tone that made Becky want to scream. "Swelling and minor fluid drainage are expected during recovery. Just keep up with the aftercare instructions." Aftercare? Becky glared at the pile of unopened leaflets the nurse had handed her. She'd been so preoccupied imagining her fabulous new life that she'd ignored most of the post-surgery advice. The real trouble began when Becky ventured out to the supermarket. Determined to act normal, she waddled through the aisles, trying to ignore the stares and muffled laughter from other shoppers. At the checkout, a child pointed at her and loudly asked, "Mummy, why does that lady have a balloon in her bum?" Becky flushed scarlet, her hands gripping the shopping trolleys so tightly her knuckles turned white. As she hurried out of the store, her leggings snagged on the corner of the display stand, ripping dramatically to reveal her lopsided disaster in all its glory. The gasps and the stifled chuckles around her felt like daggers. She fled to the car, tears streaming down her face. Her dream of perfection was rapidly unraveling, and she had no one to blame. Becky's lowest point came a week later during a follow-up appointment at the clinic. As she waited in the reception area, hiding behind oversized sunglasses and a scarf, she heard a familiar voice. "Becky!" She looked up to see Amanda, her former classmate, and now a glowing picture of health and confidence. Becky froze, praying Amanda wouldn't notice her new figure or its accompanying smell. But Amanda was already walking over, her smile warm and genuine. "I thought that was you. It's been ages." Becky braced herself for the inevitable comment, the smug judgment she was sure would follow. Instead, Amanda sat beside her and said, "I'm really glad to see you. How have you been?" The kindness in Amanda's voice caught Becky off guard. It was the first time in weeks someone had spoken to her without a hint of ridicule. Becky's defences crumbled. Before she knew it, she was spilling everything: the surgery, the regrets, the embarrassment. Amanda listened without interrupting, nodding thoughtfully. When Becky finished, Amanda reached out and placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Becky," she said gently, "you don't need to do this to yourself. Trust me, I've been there. It's not about how you look, it's about how you feel." Amanda offered to help Becky, inviting her to one of her fitness and wellness workshops. Becky hesitated, but with little else to lose, she agreed. What she didn't realise was that this decision would be the first step towards a very different kind of transformation. Becky arrived at Amanda's fitness and wellness workshop, feeling out of place. The attendees were a mixture of ages, shapes and sizes, all chatting warmly with one another. No one gave her a second glance, which was both a relief and a blow to her ego. Amanda greeted Becky with a wide smile and handed her an exercise mat. "Just do what you can," she said kindly, sensing Becky's hesitation. At first, Becky struggled. The moves were simple enough, but every stretch and bend reminded her of her sore, swollen backside. As the class progressed, Becky felt herself letting go of her usual perfectionism. No one cared if she was uncoordinated or looked ridiculous. They were all too focused on their own progress. By the end of the session, Becky felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of accomplishment. After a few weeks of attending Amanda's workshop, Becky began to see the world differently. She started eating better, moving more, and most surprisingly, laughing at herself. The absurdity of this situation became easier to accept. With Amanda's encouragement, she even shared her story at one of the workshops. "I thought getting a bigger bum would solve all my problems," Becky said, her voice shaking but determined. "Instead, it just helped to realise how many other things I needed to fix on the inside." The room erupted with applause. And for the first time, Becky felt truly seen. Just as Becky was finding her footing, she received an email that threatened to derail her progress. A popular reality TV show, Body Blunders, wanted to feature her as a contestant. The prize, a free corrective surgery and a shot at 15 minutes of fame. The old Becky would have jumped at the chance, but now she felt torn. Was this opportunity right or wrong, or a trap that would pull her back into that superficial world she was trying to leave behind? Amanda helped Becky weigh up her options. "What do you really want out of this?" she asked. Becky thought long and hard. In the end, she declined the offer. She didn't need a reality show to fix her mistakes. She was already doing that, one step at a time. Months later, Becky was almost unrecognizable, not because of her appearance, but because of her attitude. Her backside had settled into something more manageable and less odorous thanks to proper medical care, and she embraced more balanced and active lifestyle. She and Amanda teamed up to launch a wellness blog, humorously titled The Bigger Picture. The blog combines Amanda's expertise with Becky's brutally honest and often hilarious accounts of her journey. Together, they encourage readers to focus on health, self-love, and importance of laughing at life's mishaps. One evening, as Becky scrolled through the old photographs of herself, she felt a pang of regret, not for the way she used to look, but for how she used to think. She spent so many years chasing an impossible idea, missing out on real connections and genuine happiness. Her phone buzzed with a notification, a comment on her latest blog post. "Thank you for sharing your story. You've helped me feel better about myself." Becky smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was different, not by being perfect, but by being herself.